So now the last time I was here, this place was absolutely manic, filled with people trying to flee the fighting and going into Poland. Right now, it's much more manageable. And a lot of people are still going that direction. But I was just in the line to get my ticket to Kyiv, and it was a pretty long line of a lot of people going the same way. So, that's 2 months ago. I came in March 1st, roughly, so the beginning of March, and we're now in the middle of May. And it is an entirely different situation here at the Lviv rail station. So, back in Kyiv. Here we are on the central square in Kyiv, Maidan Square, famously the location of the Maidan Revolution, where in 2014 Ukrainians stood up for their independence because a corrupt leader had kind of sold them down the river to Moscow instead of leaning more towards the European Union, which is what they wanted. I have not been here since, I think it's 2018, and Trump's famous perfect call. CNN sent me down here to try and make some contacts with some people over that. And I think it's 2018. I want to say it was 2018. It might have been later. But regardless, a few things have changed, I've noticed. Notably, this building behind me, I don't recall that as having been finished back then. It was a burnt-out telecommunications building for many, many years. It was burnt out during the Maidan uprising. So I don't recall that as having been finished. It looks new to me. And this art installation is also new to my mind. I don't recall these kind of rust-colored placards that are commemorating the Maidan. Now, I love Lviv very much. It's a great town, but it's kind of that. It's a town. It's not, doesn't have the urban vibe that Kyiv has. So I love Lviv dearly. I love Odessa. I love most places I've ever been in Ukraine. But there is something about Kyiv. I don't know. I really like this city a lot. So here we are, and I'm going to take you on a little perusal around Kyiv, show you some of my haunts. We'll see if they're open or closed, what the situation is. General feel, the mood here is muted. It's hard to describe because I've been coming here for so long, for so many years. There's definitely a different kind of atmosphere on the streets. It's like somebody stunned and kind of stumbling out of a kind of, I go to the illusion of, stumbling out of a bombing or something, but let's get something a little bit more approachable. Those drunks that stumble out on the street at 7 a.m. and they've been drinking all night at nightclubs and they're kind of dazed and kind of wonky. It's the general feeling I get here. I don't mean to be flippant about it, but there's this weird kind of thing of like, what did we just go through? Those are my initial kind of impressions of Kyiv. So here we are back in Kyiv, and I'll take you around a little bit. Here's another little thing that has changed since I was last here. I don't recall these neat scooters that you can hop on. There's 2 or 3 different firms that do them, and towards the end of the day, a lot of them are actually out of juice, so they're better in the morning and the afternoon. But all you have to do is set up a profile and put in the credit card details, and then once you've done that, all you have to do is scan the QR code there and hop on board, and you're good to go. You're off and running. And they work like a dream, and they're just as cheap as could be, about $1 an hour, if that. And they'll take you all around town. And so I will hop on one of these, and we'll see if we can get some shots from the scooter as I kind of take it up and down Krashatik and show you the main thoroughfare here in Kyiv. Of course, there's also this. All the tank traps and barbed wire and defenses that can be deployed along the main street if they needed it. And many of you may have seen the video. I think I retweeted it on May 9th. President Zelensky and walking down Krashatik amongst all these tank traps. So, you know, another poignant message that we are still at war. Here's another thing that's tough to see as I make my first kind of perusal around Kyiv. That is the beautiful, beautiful monastery and church, St. Sofievsky in Kyiv. And I've seen it undergo renovation and a rebirth. And normally this square would be just filled with people. And it's not. And I have a time lapse from years and years ago that I'm going to show. And it'll show you just how wonderful this place is when it's normal. But sadly, guards are outside. Nobody's here. And what's even more sad, I think, is that the beautiful monument to the Cossack Bogdan Khmelnytsky, it's covered up almost completely in steel. It's tough to show up in Kyiv, the city I love so much, and see how much it's transformed. Okay, all right, here it is, the moment of truth. Is it? Oh, it is not. Okay. Well, I was hoping that my absolute favorite restaurant in Kyiv would still be open, but it appears as though it is not. Now, this restaurant I have been coming to for many, many years, and it is everything that you can get out of a pig and some very nice craft beer in a little subterranean place. And it does look like it is closed due to the situation, but hopefully someday soon I'll be able to clog my arteries once again. You know, it's weird being here. It's really weird being here because there's so many places in this city that bring up memories for me. For example, I remember being at this crossroads, this one right here, years and years ago, in 2014. And I was crossing this road after I'd had a meeting with a high-ranking intelligence officer, let's just say that, 2014 on the Maidan. I ran into Pierre, and the Fox correspondent at the time. And I said to Pierre, Categorically, I said this is going to be a war. It's coming. The Maidan is going to spur a war in Crimea and then probably out in the east. And Pierre, bless his heart, scoffed at me and said, nah, in that lovely Irish accent of his, you know what you're talking about. No way. This is a protest on Maidan. I said, no, you don't understand. This is an existential threat to Putin and Russia. There's going to be a war here. That was 2014. Conversation with a man who died in this current iteration of this war. So all these memories are coming flooding back to me here as I make my first kind of walk around Kyiv. It's not easy. Now this is Bessarabsky Market, and those of you who may have been watching Hal Sparks's radio program last Saturday will know that I filmed this as my backdrop during the evening, but I also wanted to come here during the day, during operating hours, because it is actually one of the best markets in the former Soviet Union. And you can buy fresh produce, you can buy pickles of anything that you can possibly imagine, garlic, tomatoes, watermelon. They pickle watermelon. Of course, cucumbers of all different flavors. But this is, to my mind, one of the best markets in the former Soviet Union, and we'll go inside and see what its status is now during this time of war. So this is the market, and it's operating, I would say, at about half capacity. You can see there are lots of empty stalls over there, but here's the caviar, and there's salo over there, pig products, sausages, things like that. The fresh produce that you can get. I mean, everything that you can possibly imagine. Pickling can be pickled, from watermelon to, cauliflower and cucumbers and garlic. It's delicious. My mouth is watering even just looking at it. But it's bittersweet. And here's the caviar, more caviar. It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. Когда вы закрываете сегодня?
Мы закрываемся в 7 часов.
7 часов. Окей, я вернусь. Я из Калифорнии. Я вернусь, я обещаю. Окей. Добрый день. Попробуем. Дякую. So, just people trying to sell their wares. So here we are, back on the central square in Kyiv, Independence Square, or Maidan Square as it's more widely known. And I'm going to finish here because I want to explain maybe what it is and why I am doing what I'm doing. And in order to do that, I have to talk about something that's a little bit private and intimate and emotional for me, because this is where my life changed. Okay, in 2014, this was a very different place. It was filled with tents and oil barrels and drums being used as fires so that they could sustain themselves over the cold nights. Thousands of people were here. People from all around the region and all around the country really had come here to provide them with sustenance, whether it was soup or local produce that they brought in, so that people could stand up for their freedom. And I remember a friend of mine had come into town, and I'd been here for about 2 or 3 weeks already. So I said, let me take you down to Maidan. I'll show you around, and you get a lay of the land. And we did that. We did the horseshoe around Independence Square, and we were on our way back up the hill behind me to the Intercontinental Hotel, which is where we were both staying. And it was right about here, somewhere along here, where we were approached by 2 old ladies. And I can still see them if I close my eyes. And the one on the left is taller and was blonde, but had gone pretty much white hair. And the one on the right is short and stout, and she's mostly gray, but she had been darker haired. And they approached us and they said, "Are you foreign journalists?" And we said, yeah, we are. And they almost immediately started tearing at their clothes, crying, begging us. "Nie zabawają nas," they said. "Don't forget about us." Ukraine has a very tragic history of being abandoned by the international community. And so with tears pouring down my cheeks, I said, "We obishayim." I shouldn't have spoken for Derek, but I did. I said, "We promise, we obishayim." And the thing is, we then continued onwards up the hill, up the street behind me here. And got about halfway, and Derek turned to me and said, "What the hell is that? What was that?" And it just dawned on me that these women were in their late 70s, early 80s. So that meant they had probably been born in the 1930s or the 1940s. They had had difficult, tragic lives. Whether they were born and had been children in the Holodomor, or they were alive during the Second World War and all the atrocities that happened then, or if they lived through the Soviet Union and the repressions by first the NKVD and then later the KGB. They'd lived hard lives. And they were begging us not to abandon this country, not to abandon their children or their grandchildren. And if you know the culture, Slavic culture, the babushka is the backbone of Slavic culture. And so in many ways I felt like I was making a promise not to these 2 old women, but in some ways to the country itself. So there was no way I was not going to come and be here and bear witness for this war. And thankfully I have some savings, and I had some financial good luck, and I'm able to do this and do it in my own way and on my own terms. I don't have to work for anybody. That's great. My intention is to move from Lviv to here. I've got to go back to Lviv and get the rest of my equipment and my goods, and then I will move here. And I will hopefully be able to stay until Victory Day, which I know is coming. But if you had any question as to why it is I'm doing this, there it is. Slava Ukraini. Geroyam Slava.